Okay, strap yourselves in, because today we're going deep on a topic that's both crucial and unsettling: escalating authoritarianism and our focus. The first 4 weeks of Trump's second term, a period that DTO has meticulously documented in their series This Week in Democracy.
You know what's striking about those early weeks?
What's that?
Just the sheer speed and aggression of the actions taken.
Yeah.
It really does read like a playbook on how to dismantle democratic norms in record time.
Like having a front row seat to a slow-motion train wreck. Watching as the executive branch just systematically chips away at the foundations of our democracy.
And that's really our mission today, to expose those patterns, assess the damage, and try to understand the growing threat
To our democratic institutions.
Exactly.
So week one, it kicks off with a bang.
Oh, yeah.
Trump unleashes this barrage of executive orders, signing more on day one than any president in history.
And this isn't just about policy. It's a deliberate strategy to just bypass Congress and consolidate power in the executive branch. You know, a classic authoritarian tactic.
And these aren't just your run-of-the-mill executive orders either.
Right.
One of them actually attempts to end birthright citizenship.
I mean, a right explicitly guaranteed by the 14th Amendment.
Wow.
And that order was blocked by a federal judge. A Reagan appointee.
No less.
Who called it blatantly unconstitutional.
But the intent was clear.
Oh, yeah.
To test the limits of executive power.
Right.
And erode those established legal norms.
Exactly.
And then comes a wave of orders targeting immigration, detention of migrants, restrictions on asylum, intensified border enforcement.
Yeah.
It seems to build on the administration's previous actions, like the Muslim travel ban and family separations.
Yeah.
But with this renewed sense of urgency and a blatant disregard, I think, for human rights.
Absolutely.
It's like they're trying to cram 4 years worth of anti-immigration policies into 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then, as if to add insult to injury, we have the pardons.
The pardons, yes.
Over 1,200 individuals convicted for their role in the January 6th insurrection, including prominent figures like the leaders of the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, were granted clemency.
Yeah.
So what message does this send to the American people?
Right.
What does it say about the rule of law when those who violently attack our democracy are pardoned?
I mean, it undermines the very foundation of our legal system. It suggests that violence against democratic processes is acceptable.
Wow.
Even rewarded. A truly chilling precedent.
And as if that weren't enough, Trump resurrects this thing called Schedule F.
Right.
A policy that allows him to just fire career government employees.
Yeah.
And replace them with political loyalists.
Schedule F isn't just about patronage.
Okay.
It's about dismantling the expertise and institutional memory of the federal workforce.
Wow.
It's about creating this climate of fear, where dissent is silenced and loyalty to the executive trumps competence and integrity.
So week one sets a pretty terrifying tone.
Yeah.
And by week two, we see this shift toward, I think, chaos and control.
Right.
It seems to be a deliberate strategy to destabilize and then dominate. Loyalty tests become commonplace, and there's a disturbing escalation of rhetoric targeting vulnerable groups.
Yeah.
Authoritarian regimes thrive on division and fear.
Absolutely.
They target specific groups, immigrants, minorities, political opponents,
right.
just to create scapegoats, rally their base, and justify their power grabs.
Yeah.
This is where we start to see this chilling language about cleaning out Gaza, moving Palestinians, and banning transgender individuals from the military.
You know, this dehumanizing rhetoric, it's straight out of the authoritarian playbook.
Oh, okay.
It's designed to demonize certain foots, incite violence, and erode the very fabric of a pluralistic society.
And then there's this chaotic episode with the federal funding freeze.
Right.
They sing halt on grants and loans that impacts billions of Americans.
Yeah.
From students to farmers to small businesses.
A federal judge ultimately blocked this freeze, calling it potentially catastrophic and likely exceeding the executive's authority. But the chaos and uncertainty it generated served a purpose.
It's like a calculated move to just sow disruption, erode trust in government institutions, and create a sense that only the executive can provide stability in these turbulent times.
Precisely. And this brings us to week 3, where we see the emergence of a figure some are calling the shadow president.
This is where Elon Musk enters the picture. Now, we all know Musk is a powerful figure in the tech world.
Right.
But his influence within the government takes a disturbing turn.
He's granted top-secret security clearance and given significant control over key government functions.
Wow.
Despite holding no elected office, the dismantling of USAID is a prime example.
USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development, it's gutted. Their headquarters shut down, their online presence erased. Employees are placed on administrative leave. Musk even boasts about feeding USAID into the wood chipper.
It's really not just about policy disagreements.
Right.
It's about the symbolic destruction of an agency that represents American values of humanitarian aid and global cooperation.
And the chilling part is that this destruction is orchestrated by an unelected individual with unchecked power.
Yeah.
Just a stark warning about the erosion of democratic accountability.
The doxing of DEI workers, diversity, equity, and inclusion staff, primarily Black employees. It further illustrates this disregard for democratic norms. Their personal information is leaked online.
Wow.
Making them vulnerable to harassment and threats.
And we see this parallel effort to just control the flow of information.
Yeah.
Manipulating NOAA data, suspending holiday observances, and essentially creating an information vacuum where only the executive's narrative can exist.
Controlling the narrative is a hallmark of authoritarian regimes. They understand that whoever controls the information controls the people.
And that brings us to week 4, which culminates in what some are calling the Thursday afternoon massacre.
It's a directive to fire nearly all probationary employees across government agencies.
Wow.
Affecting hundreds of thousands of workers. It's a blatant purge of potential dissent within the federal workforce.
We see high-level officials resigning in protest, refusing to be complicit in this assault on the civil service. Danielle Sassoon, the acting U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, is a prime example.
Yeah, these mass firings are designed to instill fear and ensure compliance.
Right.
They're a clear signal that loyalty to the executive trumps competence, experience, or even basic principles of fairness.
And this attack on democratic institutions, it doesn't stop there. We see intensified attacks on the judiciary with calls for impeachment and removal of judges who dare to rule against the administration.
It's a direct assault on the separation of powers, a bedrock principle of our democracy. It's about intimidating judges and undermining their independence.
And then there's this troubling development with the National Archives and Records Administration, or NARA. The administration purges its leadership, potentially to obstruct investigations into Trump's handling of classified documents.
It's a classic authoritarian tactic. Control the historical narrative, suppress inconvenient truths, and rewrite history to fit your own agenda.
And on the international front, we see the vice president meeting with the far-right AfD party in Germany. This isn't just a diplomatic blunder.
Right.
It's a deliberate snub of a key ally and a signal of alignment with extremist ideologies.
These 4 weeks paint a chilling picture of an executive branch determined to consolidate power, silence dissent, and undermine the very foundations of our democracy.
So as we wrap up part 1, we're left with this unsettling question. If this is just the beginning, what does the future hold for American democracy?
That's what we'll explore in part 2. We'll delve deeper into the tactics of authoritarianism.
Okay.
Analyze the damage that's already been done, and consider the potential scenarios that could unfold in the coming weeks and months.
Stay with us. This conversation is far from over.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. As we pick up where we left off, the question looming over us is a stark one. How do we resist this escalating tide of authoritarianism?
The first 4 weeks of this second term have been a whirlwind of alarming actions, each chipping away at the bedrock of our democracy. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, almost paralyzed by the sheer speed and audacity of it all.
That sense of helplessness is exactly what authoritarians aim for. They want us to believe that the fight is futile, that resistance is pointless, but that's precisely where we need to dig in and remember the power we hold as citizens.
Okay, so let's get practical. What does resistance actually look like in the face of such a determined assault on democratic norms? Where do we even begin?
It starts with awareness. We can't afford to be passive consumers of information, especially in an era where misinformation and propaganda are weaponized.
Right.
Seek out reliable sources, diversify your media diet, and engage in critical thinking. Don't just accept what you see at face value. Question, verify, and analyze.
So it's not just about staying informed. It's about becoming discerning consumers of information. actively filtering out the noise and getting to the heart of the truth.
Exactly, and it goes beyond just individual awareness. We need to talk to each other, engage in thoughtful discussions, and challenge our own assumptions. Because authoritarians thrive on division, on pitting us against each other. Building bridges of understanding is an act of resistance in itself.
That makes a lot of sense. But awareness alone doesn't feel like enough. What about concrete actions? What can we do to actually push back against these authoritarian trends?
There are many avenues for action, and each act of resistance, no matter how small, contributes to the larger fight. Using your voice is crucial.
Okay.
Speak out against injustice, write to your elected officials, hold them accountable for their actions.
Right.
Support organizations like the ACLU Common Cause or the Brennan Center for Justice that are actively defending democratic values and fighting for our rights.
So it's about being engaged citizens, not just passive observers, taking that frustration, that sense of urgency, and channeling it into meaningful action.
Absolutely. Attend protests, volunteer your time, donate to causes you believe in, and remember there's strength in numbers. Connect with like-minded individuals, build coalitions, organize around shared values. When people come together, their voices amplify, and those in power are forced to listen.
It feels like a daunting task. Rebuilding trust in institutions, restoring faith in our democracy. Is it even possible to repair the damage that's already been done?
The long game is certainly challenging, but not insurmountable. We can draw inspiration from historical examples of countries that have transitioned from authoritarianism back to democracy. It's a testament to the enduring human spirit, the unwavering belief in the power of collective action.
I'm curious about those transitions. What were the key elements that allowed them to succeed? What lessons can we learn from their struggles and triumphs?
Truth and reconciliation often play a central role. It's about acknowledging the harms inflicted, seeking justice for the victims, and holding those responsible accountable for their actions. We can't simply sweep the past under the rug and pretend it never happened. That only allows the wounds to fester and the cycle of abuse to continue.
So it's about facing the darkness head on, learning from the mistakes of the past, and ensuring that those in power are held accountable for their actions. But there's also this element of rebuilding trust, right? Especially trust in our institutions that have been so badly damaged.
Absolutely. Rebuilding trust requires transparency, accountability, and responsiveness from our institutions. It means restoring the independence of the judiciary, protecting the freedom of the press, and ensuring that our institutions serve the people, not the interests of the powerful few.
That's a lot to grapple with, and we're still only in the early stages of this struggle. What are some potential scenarios that could unfold in the coming weeks and months? What should we be prepared for?
It's impossible to predict the future with certainty, but given the administration's track record and their apparent emboldenment by the lack of significant pushback so far, we need to be prepared for further escalation.
Oh, wow.
More aggressive power grabs, attempts to further consolidate control over the military, a crackdown on dissent.
Right.
Even restrictions on voting rights are all within the realm of possibility.
That's a chilling thought. But is there any chance, any glimmer of hope that this authoritarian trend could be reversed, or at least slowed down?
There's always hope. Public outrage, legal challenges, even internal dissent within the administration itself could create enough pressure to force a change of course. The power of collective action should never be underestimated. It's been the driving force behind countless social and political transformations throughout history.
So it's a battle on multiple fronts. Legal challenges, grassroots organizing, raising public awareness, holding those in power accountable. But it's also about understanding the deeper forces at play, right? What led us to this point where authoritarianism could take root in American soil?
That's a complex question, but I think there are a few key factors that have created fertile ground for this erosion of democracy. One is a deep-seated disillusionment and distrust in government institutions. This has been brewing for decades,
Right.
fueled by political polarization, corruption scandals, and a growing sense that the system is rigged against ordinary people.
It feels like the gap between the elites and everyone else has just been widening, leaving many feeling powerless and voiceless. Is that what authoritarians exploit? That sense of frustration and disillusionment?
Absolutely. They offer simple solutions to complex problems, scapegoat marginalized groups, and prey on fear and uncertainty. In times of crisis, when people are desperate for change, they're more willing to embrace anyone who promises a different path, even if that path leads away from democracy.
So it's not just about the tactics of authoritarians, it's about the underlying conditions that make those tactics effective. The erosion of trust, the widening gap between the rich and the poor, the rise of social media and its ability to amplify division and misinformation.
You've hit on some crucial points. Social media has undoubtedly played a significant role. It's created echo chambers where people are exposed only to information that confirms their existing beliefs, making them more susceptible to propaganda and manipulation.
It feels like we've lost the ability to have meaningful conversations with people who hold different views. Everyone's retreating into their own echo chambers, and the common ground is shrinking.
That's precisely the danger. Authoritarians thrive on division, on pitting us against each other while they consolidate power. Breaking out of those echo chambers, engaging in respectful dialogue, and finding common ground is essential for resisting authoritarianism.
So we're talking about a multifaceted fight, resisting the immediate threats, rebuilding trust in our institutions, addressing the underlying causes of democratic erosion, and reclaiming our ability to have meaningful conversations across our differences.
It's a daunting challenge, but not an impossible one. The future of our democracy depends on our willingness to engage in this fight on all fronts.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. In this final part, we're shifting our focus from the national stage to the local level, where a different kind of resistance is taking root.
As we saw in parts 1 and 2, the first 4 weeks of this second term were just this relentless assault on democratic norms. But amidst the darkness, there are these glimmers of hope, pockets of resistance emerging in communities across America.
It's like a David versus Goliath scenario, with everyday citizens standing up to protect their rights and push back against this creeping authoritarianism.
What's so fascinating is that these local movements, they aren't waiting for Washington to act. They're taking matters into their own hands, using creative tactics and leveraging their collective power to defend democracy at the grassroots level.
So let's dive into some real-world examples.
Okay.
What's happening on the ground in towns and cities across the country? What strategies are these citizen groups employing?
One striking trend is the resurgence of citizen watchdog groups. They're attending town hall meetings, scrutinizing local budgets, filing public record requests, basically holding local officials accountable and ensuring transparency.
It's like they're shining a light on the workings of government. Making sure that decisions are made in the open and that the voices of the people are heard.
Precisely. And it's not just about watchdogging.
Right.
We're also seeing this surge in community organizing around specific issues, like protecting voting rights, defending immigrant communities, and advocating for environmental justice.
So they're taking on these national issues, but fighting them at the local level, where they can have a more direct impact.
Exactly. And what's inspiring is just the diversity of these movements. People from all walks of life, different backgrounds, political affiliations, even ideological perspectives, they're coming together to fight for shared values and a common vision of a just and equitable society.
It's a reminder that even in these deeply polarized times, there's still common ground to be found, especially when it comes to defending the core principles of our democracy.
Absolutely. And they're not just relying on traditional tactics like protests and rallies. Although those are still important, they're using legal challenges, voter registration drives, educational campaigns, even creative forms of art and storytelling.
Interesting.
To raise awareness and mobilize their communities.
It sounds like a multi-pronged approach, recognizing that there's no single solution to the complex challenge of resisting authoritarianism.
And technology plays a crucial role.
Yeah.
Social media platforms are being used to share information, organize events, and build solidarity across geographic boundaries. We're seeing this emergence of online platforms for reporting hate speech and harassment, crowdsourced databases of local government actions, and even efforts to develop AI-powered tools to counter misinformation and propaganda.
So technology is a double-edged sword. It can be used to undermine democracy, but it can also be a powerful tool for defending it.
Precisely. And it's inspiring to see how these local groups are leveraging technology to amplify their impact, connect with like-minded individuals, and build momentum around their causes.
So what lessons can we learn from these local resistance movements? What strategies seem to be most effective?
One key takeaway is the importance of building broad-based coalitions. These movements are bringing together people who might not agree on everything, but who share a common commitment to defending democracy. They're finding common ground and working together towards shared goals.
It's a reminder that unity is our greatest strength, especially in the face of a threat that seeks to divide us.
Another crucial lesson is the importance of strategic planning and effective communication. These groups aren't just reacting to events, they're thinking long-term, developing strategies, crafting compelling narratives, and using a variety of tactics to maximize their impact.
It's about being smart, resourceful, and persistent. But can these local movements really make a difference at the national level? it feels like they're up against such powerful forces.
National movements often start at the local level.
Right.
These grassroots efforts are planting seeds of resistance, building momentum, raising awareness, and cultivating the skills and networks needed for sustained change.
It's a reminder that even small acts of resistance can have a ripple effect, inspiring others to take action and creating a groundswell of opposition to authoritarianism.
And as we've seen throughout history, those who underestimate the power of the people do so at their own peril.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into escalating authoritarianism, what are some key takeaways that we, as engaged citizens, should keep in mind?
First, never underestimate the power of your own voice and actions. Every act of resistance, no matter how small, contributes to the larger fight.
Second, connect with others, build coalitions, and find strength in unity. We're far more powerful when we stand together.
Third, stay informed, stay engaged, and never give up hope. The future of our democracy depends on our willingness to defend it.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. The fight for democracy continues, and it's a fight we must win.